Way back in the early 2000s, I thought I had it all. A wife I loved, two beautiful kids, and the kind of quiet suburban life most people dream about. But then, little cracks started to show. Whispers of something I couldn't quite put my finger on. My children, just 4 and 6 years old, started talking about spending more and more time at their grandparents' house, nearly 90 minutes away. And while that might sound harmless on the surface, it was the beginning of a nightmare. A nightmare that would lead me to betrayal, heartbreak, and eventually, a revenge so devastating that it destroyed not just my cheating wife's illusion of happiness, but her lover's entire life. Before I dive into this story of betrayal and brutal justice, let me say this: if you believe that cheaters deserve consequences, and that karma has a way of finding people, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Because what you're about to hear is proof that sometimes, the universe doesn't just balance the scales, it tips them completely. The beginning of suspicions. At first, I wanted to dismiss my gut feeling. I wanted to tell myself I was just being paranoid, maybe even insecure. My wife, let's call her Anna, was a part-time worker, a loving mother, someone I thought was devoted to the family we were building together. But then came the trips. 2, sometimes 3 times a week, she'd drive the kids to her parents' house. That's a 90-minute drive, each way. It didn't make sense. Her parents weren't sick. They weren't needy. Sure, they loved their grandkids, but it was strange for Anna to be burning that much gas, spending that much time, just to drop the kids off. Something in me whispered, this isn't right. The first signs of lies. I confronted her casually one evening. We were sitting at the kitchen table, her sipping tea, me trying to sound as relaxed as possible. Hey, why are you taking the kids to your parents so often lately? I asked. She barely blinked. Oh, they just love seeing them. You know how mom and dad are. Besides, it gives me a break while you're at work. Her answer was smooth. Too smooth. See, here's the thing about Anna, she was never a good liar. She'd avoid eye contact, fidget with her hands, her tone just slightly off. And as she gave me that explanation, every alarm bell in my head started ringing. I didn't push it that night. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Tracking the truth. I couldn't let it go. So I did something simple, something old-fashioned. I started tracking the mileage on her car. Every time she came home, I'd check the odometer. Quietly, secretly. And within just a week, I had my answer. 400 extra miles. Every single week. That wasn't just trips to her parents. That was something else. Something hidden. My stomach sank. I knew she was lying. I knew something dark was brewing beneath the surface. But knowing and proving are two very different things. The AOL password. And then fate handed me the smoking gun. One evening, I sat down at the family computer, yes, back in the AOL days, and there it was, a sticky note left carelessly beside the keyboard. Her AOL password. It was almost like the universe wanted me to see the truth. I stared at that piece of paper for a long time, battling with myself. Was this crossing a line? Was I betraying her trust? But then I thought, trust? What trust? She was already sneaking around. I deserved answers. So I logged in. And what I found shattered me. The emails. Buried in her inbox were email exchanges with her college best friend. Innocent enough at first glance. Until I scrolled further. That's when I read the words that burned into my brain forever. They were talking about how she was sleeping with one of her high school ex-boyfriends. Not just a one-time mistake. Not just an emotional fling. This was regular. Planned. Coordinated. And as if that wasn't enough of a knife to the gut, she also mocked his wife in those emails. Called her fat. Laughed about how she'd let herself go after kids. My hands trembled as I read. My chest ached, like my heart was physically tearing. I printed the emails. Every single one. And I hid them. Because now, I wasn't just a suspicious husband, I was a man with evidence. Sleepless nights. But evidence doesn't heal a broken heart. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her breathing beside me. And all I could think was, how long? How long has she been lying? How many times has she kissed me with the same mouth she used on him? The betrayal was suffocating. My parents had cheated on each other when I was a kid, and it tore my childhood apart. I had sworn that I'd never let my own kids go through that. And now, here I was. History repeating itself. Calling in a professional. I needed more. I needed the full picture. So I reached out to a friend of mine, a cop, and I told him the situation. He didn't sugarcoat it. Look, man, if you want to know for sure, call this guy. He's an ex-cop, now a private investigator. Best in the business. That's how I met Ron. Ron was calm, professional, and didn't ask unnecessary questions. I gave him the emails, the mileage notes, everything I had. He nodded, said, "Leave it to me," and that was it. I had set the wheels in motion. And part of me was terrified of what Ron would find. But another part, the darker, angrier part, wanted confirmation. Wanted to see it in black and white. The PI report. A week later, Ron delivered. Photos. Dates. Times. Locations. Everything meticulously documented. The pattern was sickeningly clear. She'd drop the kids at her parents'. Meet her lover for lunch. Then sneak off to a rundown motel for a few hours. Pick the kids back up and come home like nothing happened. It was a routine. A lifestyle. Looking at those photos, my hands clenched into fists. I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there. But I didn't. Because rage without strategy is useless. And I wasn't going to let her walk away clean. Cliffhanger. That night, I sat alone with the photos spread across the table. My heart was in pieces, but my mind was sharper than ever. If she thought she could betray me, lie to me, and humiliate me, she had another thing coming. Because I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to burn her entire affair to the ground. The weight of betrayal. Every morning after Ron's report, I looked at my wife differently. She'd hum in the kitchen while making breakfast, her hair tied up, the kids chattering at the table. And all I could see were the motel bedsheets she'd tangled herself in just hours before. It was maddening. A cruel theater play where I was forced to sit in the audience, smiling, nodding, pretending I didn't already know the truth. And she, so confident, so careless, had no idea the curtain was about to fall. But before I could drop the hammer, I had to plan carefully. My father's ghost. The thing that haunted me most wasn't even the betrayal itself, it was the echo of my parents. When I was a kid, my dad cheated. Then my mom cheated back. The fights were endless. The screaming, the slammed doors, the police once being called to the house. My childhood was chaos. I swore I'd never let my kids live through that. So while I sat on undeniable proof of Anna's affair, I bit my tongue. I tucked the pain deep inside. Because exploding in rage wasn't going to help my children. I needed control. And patience. But patience is heavy. Each day I carried it, it broke me a little more. Pretending at home. The kids were still so young. 4 and 6. Innocent eyes, wide smiles, the whole world ahead of them. They didn't notice the cracks in their parents' marriage. They just wanted bedtime stories, hugs, someone to kiss their scraped knees. So I played my part. Dad the provider. Dad the protector. Dad who laughed at their silly jokes and cheered them on at soccer practice. Meanwhile, their mother snuck out behind my back, tossing our family away for cheap motel trysts with an old flame. Do you know how hard it is to smile when your insides are screaming? To sit across from the woman you married and pretend like she hasn't shattered every ounce of trust between you? That was my life. Day after day. Sleepless nights. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every moment of our marriage. Our wedding day. The birth of our kids. Vacations. Laughter. Promises whispered in the dark. Were they all lies? Did she ever mean them? Or had she been waiting, all this time, for the chance to crawl back to an old boyfriend the moment life got boring? I'd roll over, watch her sleep peacefully beside me, and feel nothing but rage. Sometimes I'd slip out of bed, go downstairs, and spread Ron's photos across the table. Each one a dagger, each one reminding me why I couldn't just let this go. I didn't want revenge just for me. I wanted it because she thought I was stupid. Because she thought she could walk all over me and I'd never find out. She underestimated me. And that would be her downfall. The other man. Ron didn't stop at my wife's activities. He dug deeper. And what he found made everything crystal clear. The man she was cheating with? His name was Bob. Married. 3 kids. A vice president of sales at his father-in-law's business. A man who wore a mask of success and stability while crawling around in filth behind his wife's back. The irony made me sick. 2 families. 2 sets of kids. 2 unsuspecting spouses betrayed by people they trusted most. But here's where the scales started to tip in my favor. Bob's entire career, his entire lifestyle, rested on the goodwill of his wife's family. And when I learned that little detail, a dangerous thought entered my mind. This isn't just about exposing my wife anymore. This is about burning Bob's world to ash. The lawyer. I wasn't reckless. I knew emotions could cloud judgment, so I hired a divorce lawyer. A good one. We sat in a quiet office, the blinds half drawn, the smell of old coffee lingering in the air. I slid the PI's report across the desk. The lawyer leafed through it slowly, nodding. Legally, he said, her infidelity won't change much in terms of custody or division of assets. Courts don't care about morality. They care about the kids. I nodded. I understand. But I want this to be clean. No screaming matches. No chaos for my children. Just done. He smiled faintly. Then we'll make it done. But in my head, I added silently, and I'll make sure she pays in ways the court can't touch. The mask slips. The more I watched Anna, the more obvious her lies became. She'd text with a little smile tugging at her lips, then quickly hide the phone when I walked into the room. She'd come home smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. Sometimes, she'd be tired, too tired for intimacy with me, though somehow, she had plenty of energy for errands during the day. Once, I caught her humming to herself in front of the bathroom mirror, a light in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't joy. It wasn't love. It was lust. Excitement. The thrill of sneaking around. And I thought to myself, enjoy it while it lasts. Because when I'm done, you'll have nothing left to smile about. The boiling point. Weeks passed. My evidence pile grew. My resolve hardened. But keeping it inside, it ate at me. I'd find myself gripping the steering wheel too hard while driving. Snapping at coworkers over small things. Drinking more than I should at night, just to dull the ache. Revenge was close. But so was collapse. The line between control and chaos thinned with every passing day. And then one evening, as my wife laughed on the phone with her college friend, I realized I couldn't wait much longer. The time for patience was ending. The time for action was here. I had the evidence. I had the lawyer. I had Ron's full report. All that was left was execution. The moment of clarity. It was late one night when everything crystallized for me. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet. And I sat alone at the kitchen table, Ron's report spread before me like a roadmap of betrayal. Photos, timestamps, motel receipts, it was all there. For weeks, I'd carried this burden like a weight on my chest. But as I stared at those pages, the fear and despair twisted into something sharper. Resolve. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't some clueless husband destined to be played for a fool. I had leverage. I had evidence. And more importantly, I had the will to use it. That was the night I decided she wouldn't just get caught. She would be exposed. And Bob, the smug little homewrecker who thought he could play in the shadows without consequences? He was going down, too. Gathering ammunition. The first step was preparation. I asked Ron for multiple copies of his report. Not just the surveillance on Anna, but the deep dive he'd done into Bob's life. Names, addresses, phone numbers, his entire professional history. Bob had built his whole world on one fragile foundation, his marriage to a woman whose father essentially controlled his job, his house, his stability. And Anna? She thought she could balance her double life forever, blissfully unaware that I was holding a ticking time bomb. Every detail I collected became a weapon. Every lie she told became another reason to sharpen the blade. The divorce papers. I sat down with my lawyer again. Calm, steady, almost unnervingly composed. "I want to file," I said. He nodded, sliding a stack of documents across the desk. "We'll serve her at work, it'll be cleaner that way. Less chance of a scene at home with the kids around." I signed the papers, each stroke of the pen feeling like a nail in the coffin of our marriage. But instead of grief, I felt relief. Power. For the first time in months, I was steering the ship. And I wasn't just steering it, I was aiming it straight into the iceberg. A dangerous idea. Afterward, I sat in my car outside the lawyer's office, staring at the manila envelope in my hands. It wasn't enough. Ending my marriage was one thing. But Bob, the other man, he was walking free. Still married. Still successful. Still playing house with his wife and kids while sneaking off to cheap motels with mine. The thought of him smiling smugly across the dinner table at his wife while secretly laughing at me behind my back, it made my blood boil. And then it hit me, why should his wife stay in the dark? She deserved to know. She deserved the same truth I'd uncovered. And if that truth happened to tear his perfect little world apart? All the better. The plan. I called Ron. My voice was calm, but my words carried weight. "I want you to deliver a copy of the report to Bob's wife. In person. The same day my wife is served with divorce papers." There was a pause on the line, then a low whistle. "That's going to be a hell of a day for them." "Exactly," I said. It was elegant. Precise. A double strike. My wife, blindsided at work with legal documents ending our marriage. Bob's wife, blindsided at home with photographic evidence of his betrayal. In one fell swoop, their entire secret would detonate. And I wouldn't even need to raise my voice. The calm before the storm. The days leading up to the execution were surreal. Anna carried on as usual, packing lunches, folding laundry, humming to herself while she texted God knows who. I moved quietly through the house, playing my role as if nothing was amiss. But inside, I was counting down the hours. There's a unique kind of calm that comes when you've already set the trap. Like a hunter crouched in the brush, knowing the prey has already stepped into the snare, it's just a matter of time before it snaps shut. Doubts and demons. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't doubt myself. Late at night, I'd question everything. Was I doing the right thing? Was I about to destroy not just Anna and Bob, but their kids' lives, too? The thought of those children, innocent, just like mine, haunted me. They hadn't asked for this. They didn't deserve the fallout of their father's choices. But then I'd remember my own childhood. The lies. The chaos. The nights I'd wished someone, anyone, had exposed the truth before it festered into years of pain. No. This wasn't cruelty. This was justice. And sometimes justice hurts. Execution day. The morning of execution arrived like any other. Anna kissed me goodbye before work, none the wiser. I kissed the kids on their heads, sent them off to school, and sat alone in the quiet house. My heart raced, but my hands were steady. At 11 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer, she's been served. I imagined her face in that moment, eyes widening, cheeks flushing, hands trembling as she realized her carefully built house of cards had collapsed right at her desk. And then, just an hour later, another buzz. This time from Ron, it's done. Bob's wife knows everything. I sat back in my chair, exhaling deeply. It was over. Or at least, the beginning of the end had arrived. But here's the thing about revenge, once the first domino falls, the rest don't topple neatly. They crash. They splinter. They scatter in ways you can't always predict. And Bob's downfall? Oh, it was just getting started. The domino falls. The moment everything was set in motion, the world shifted. Anna's divorce papers hit her desk at work. I imagined her face, the shock, the panic. Every carefully constructed lie she'd told me over the years crumbled in an instant. At the same time, Ron delivered Bob's betrayal to his wife. She was quiet, composed, but her eyes burned with disbelief. I had no idea how she would react, but I didn't need to. I had simply handed her the truth. What she did with it was up to her. And oh, did she act. Bob's world collapses. Within days, Bob's life was unrecognizable. He tried to maintain control, tried to act as if nothing had changed, but it was too late. His wife cleaned out their joint account. She took the kids. She moved out, leaving him with nothing. Bob's father-in-law, the very man who had given him a cushy VP job, heard of the betrayal and promptly fired him. And since the house Bob and his wife lived in belonged to her family, he was evicted. Every corner of his life collapsed simultaneously. The legal and personal fallout. The divorce was messy. Ugly. Public. Court documents reveal fighting, restraining orders, police reports, and criminal charges. Bob even tried to confront his wife in person, leading to an altercation where he ended up with a broken nose. Jail time, fines, lost reputation, he felt every consequence of his actions. And unlike me, Bob had no evidence to protect himself. No plan. No ally. Just chaos, descending like a storm he had invited with his own hands. Watching from afar. Meanwhile, my ex-wife's life was quietly unraveling, too. She didn't lose custody or her home outright, but the social ramifications were undeniable. Friends distanced themselves. Family grew cold. Even without me saying a word, the truth leaked, and suddenly she was no longer the center of attention, the person everyone admired. Her charm, once her shield, no longer protected her. And I watched from a distance, silent, knowing justice had been served, not just for me, but for the countless people she had deceived. My kids and healing. Amid all the chaos, my kids remained my focus. At first, they were confused. The upheaval of divorce, the separation of families, it was complicated, even for children. But I made sure to shield them from the bitterness. No angry words about their mother, no resentment projected onto them. Just stability, love, and normalcy. Friday night pizzas, Saturday cartoons, Sunday walks, rituals that grounded us, kept us strong. And slowly, I watched them heal. Their laughter returned. Their innocence remained intact. Bob's vanishing. Bob eventually disappeared from public view. Left the state, changed his life, no forwarding address, no social media presence. His family moved on, his ex-wife reclaimed her life and career, taking over her father's company. Justice had not only caught up with him, it had reshaped his entire existence. Reflection and closure. As for me, life continued quietly. My ex-wife and I interacted only when necessary, school events, birthdays, holidays. Nothing more. I didn't hate her. She was, and always will be, my children's mother, but nothing beyond that. I had been through the pain of betrayal, the sleepless nights, the rage. But I had survived. And in surviving, I had gained something more valuable than revenge alone: control over my life, dignity restored, and a foundation for my children's future. Betrayal cuts deep. It scars. It challenges your very sense of trust. But when you navigate it carefully, strategically, justice, true, poetic justice, can be far more powerful than anger alone. The moral. Looking back, the lesson is clear: cheaters may believe they are clever. They may think they can juggle lies and manipulation indefinitely. But the truth always finds a way. And when it does, the collapse isn't just a stumble, it's a full-scale implosion. For me, the scars remain. The memories linger. But so does a quiet, profound satisfaction. Because in the end, I reclaimed my life, shielded my children, and watched karma deliver what the law alone could not. If you've ever faced betrayal, whether from a partner, a friend, or someone you trusted, know this: patience, evidence, and strategy are more powerful than blind anger. If you found this story compelling, hit that like button, subscribe for more true revenge narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes, hearing these stories reminds us that justice can be measured in more than just court judgments.